Welcome to Fireteam Chat, IGN's Destiny show. Thank you so much for joining us. Joining me is Brian Malkowitz.
That's me.
Travis Northup.
McClunky.
And Paul Tassi, famous YouTuber with his hit new YouTube channel. Paul.
Such a hit. I'm viral. What can I say?
Paul actually writes for Forbes full-time. He's written a ton of articles about Destiny. He has been on the show before. Thank you for joining us yet again, Paul Tassi.
All right, thanks for having me back.
Where can people watch you on YouTube? You really did start a YouTube channel, and it's kind of cool.
I did, yeah. I'm up to 4 videos, so that's big. Going to do a celebration at 5, I think. And I don't have a custom URL yet, so just look up my name on YouTube, Paul Tassi, and I hope that makes you find me.
I think the genius is in its simplicity. Like everything about it was so simple, and it's a little cheeky. It's pretty fun. Yeah. So congrats on that. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about that Ruinous Effigy that everybody is either grinding for or getting right about now. We're going to talk about the current season, our feelings on it, and what our favorite season has been to date. And we're going to talk about how much I hate Trials of Osiris.
Wouldn't be an episode of
wouldn't be an episode.
Talk about that or Vault Space or both.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't even think of that because my vault is a disaster.
No.
Real quick, but let's start with the positive stuff. Let's talk about Ruinous Effigy, which I think is an amazing positive. I have to say, Bungie absolutely knocked it out of the park with this exotic. It is creative, it's fun, it has multi-functions, and I'm having a blast with it. Let's talk about the weapon and its functionality itself. Paul, you wrote an article all about one of its functions. Tell us about Ruinous Effigy, what it can do, and why you love this one function the most.
Yeah, it's something I wouldn't have even have caught, just kind of like playing around with the weapon myself. So the main function is it's a trace rifle. So you shoot it at an enemy, then they collapse into a void orb, like those void crystals in the Savathun Song Strike, which is a little creepy. But you can then use that orb to run around, slap enemies with it, or dunk it. What it would not occur to most people to do with an orb is try to block with it. And in that sense, it's more like a relic where it creates this force field around you where you can run at enemies and it siphons life from them into you, killing enemies. And then I think once you get the catalyst, it tags them with a debuff that makes the effigy now hurt them more once they're affected by that. So it's like 7 different exotic perks essentially in a single gun, and it's kind of wild what they did with it. And I've been having a blast with it.
Yeah, I really like
Jade Rabbit, whichever one.
You can watch
You can do
Come a long
all
way
of that
since Jade
or
Rabbit,
use
which
Jade
is
Rabbit.
like Head Seeker. You know, that's fun
Head
exotic
Seeker
perk.
plug.
It's about fun over function, Travis.
Right.
Yeah, so you can dunk it on people's faces. You can just give them a punch in the face, and of course, what Paul said, you can use this force field ability that is, man, it shreds everything, and the fact that it nullifies the stomp damage and everything just makes it just great. I'm just so happy there is a thing that means I'm not going to get blasted a million miles away every time something stomps.
Does it nullify the damage or the actual effect of being knocked back? I haven't tried that yet.
The effect of being knocked back, but you can take a substantial amount more damage because usually bosses are surrounded by ads, which are constantly giving you life. So I go into a lost sector, like the Moon Lost Sector, Mars Lost Sector. Brian and I, you know the one I'm talking about, the one we always farm. Right, top spawn
with the Cabal or the Cabal?
Yep.
The Cabal
with
one?
the Hive.
Yeah.
The Hive one.
Greg one.
Oh, yeah, there's 2 of them.
Yeah. No, with the Knight at the end on Mars.
Yeah, the Knight. On the one on my Knight on the Mars is the Knight.
Oh, Mars. I think it's a Titan. Yeah.
Anyway.
I love that
One
one.
with a million
Orb's
throw.
great.
Icy throw.
Great farm. It's the first orb I killed with my Ruinous Effigy, by the way. Did you guys shoot all the eyes?
I did.
Yeah, got all the eyes.
Yeah. PSA.
I still got to
do
do Prophecy and Whisper.
PSA.
It's free 2,500.
PSA, do not dunk with the ball on the eyes. Bungie said apparently that's a bug. I did it once and I got super lucky.
Unless you have the catalyst.
Unless you have the catalyst?
If you already have the catalyst, then it doesn't matter.
Really?
Yeah, because the eyes count to the catalyst if you shoot it with the gun, not with the thing. But also shooting regular enemies will account for the catalyst too. So if you already have the catalyst, then it doesn't matter how you destroy the eye.
Good.
No, it'll bug the
we're just
triumph
saying
though.
don't
I think
shoot
is the
it.
issue.
Does it bug the triumph?
If you dunk an
That's-
orb on an eye instead of shooting it, it'll bug the triumph and not count it. So like
That's-
it's
that
not about
sucks.
completing the catalyst. It's about like
That
screwing
sucks.
up the.
Yeah.
So
Yikes.
that's
I think
why
I
you
didn't
don't
do that with any of them.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah. It's pretty hard to do it on like 90% of them because most of them are
yeah, for sure.
floating somewhere. But
So that aspect, getting the actual catalyst of it, what I did was I dunked on an enemy. You know, you start the catalyst quest. I cleared a lost sector using the orbs to kill enemies, and I got about 3%. And then I quickly realized, because I was streaming and chat's like, hey, you should probably just shoot the eyes because they give you 3% each. You go about halfway through the shooting the eye quest, 25, and you have your catalyst, and you can continue going on. So yes, I went and I got all the eyes and all the locations, and I got the catalyst for that gun, and I'm just having a blast with Ruinous Effigy. And I just have to say, thank you, Bungie, for doing something wacky, weird, and so unique. I've never seen a weapon like this, and it's been so long in a video game since I've seen like something really, really cool that has sort of this multifunctionality. Brian, do you have the same impressions? Do you like the weapon?
Yeah, the weapon's great. My biggest thing with it is I'm wondering if this weapon is some sort of like setup to have a functionality like Touch of Malice. Since the weapon itself, lore wise, has some like was kind of like created with Touch of Malice in mind. I'm wondering if like in Beyond Light, this weapon will have some sort of functionality with its shield mechanic and orb dunking that will need it for a mechanic like in King's Fall, when you would be able to create that orb and infinitely shoot Touch of Malice because that shield nullified the damage. So I'm wondering if this effect will have any sort of usefulness in a new raid or in some sort of activity in Beyond Light.
Yeah, the Crypt Raid is coming around the corner. It would be really neat to see if this thing ended up having a functionality. Travis, what do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah, I'm mostly wondering when it's going to get nerfed. I think that's probably
No.
something's going to happen to
Is it broken? Is it broken?
No.
Like,
I don't know if it's broken, but I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean, you know me. I'm always like, why nerf it, right? Let's just let us have our fun. But yeah, I'm a little nervous just because like the orb thing, and like Destin said, the stomp mechanic blocking, I feel like is going to have some implications on bosses. I mean, they love their stomp mechanics. They love keeping us away from bosses. So is that going to be something that is always around? I have my doubts. I also am curious about the lore implications because we know that this is a gift from the darkness. It would be really easy for them to take this weapon away from us for like lore reasons, or give it some extra context just because there's some like mystery to it. And like Paul said, we're turning people into those orbs like Savathun did, so it's like a little bit shady. So I'm really liking it though. It's a lot of fun. So hopefully it sticks around and doesn't get nerfed or lured out of existence or something. But yeah.
We've been there
and
before.
my favorite thing is when Zavala and Eris are talking about it. And he's like, well, like, what if this is bad? And she's like, oh, well, then we will use their gift against them. I'm like, yeah, I think they would have planned for that, honestly. Like,
yeah, right.
That's the best tactic, but sure.
You think the darkness is just trying to help us out on its own goodwill? Okay, man, whatever.
Yeah, so bravo on the weapon. Thank you. And I hope everybody out there is getting to play it. Don't dunk the orbs on the eyes. Just don't do that. Just shoot it with the exotic trace rifle. But big thumbs up on Ruinous Effigy. Now, let's talk about Season 11 and overall the seasons, just in general, to date, everything that we've gotten to experience. Do you guys think that Season 11, Season of the Arrivals, is the best season to date? If not, what has been your favorite season as we go into Beyond Light? Let's start with you.
We're talking about non-fall seasons, right? Just to
yeah, and the catalyst for this conversation is Paul. I believe you did a poll asking people what their favorite season was in Destiny, right? And what was the result? What were the results of that poll?
Not to skew the conversation, but I immediately cut Worthy and Drifter because you could only have 4 options, and I just sliced those off the bottom. So it's Forge, Opulence, Dawn, and Arrivals. And despite the fact that Arrivals has only been here for a month now, it almost caught Opulence. I think Opulence was like 45, and then Arrivals is 40, and then the other two are like 6% or something. So people picked Opulence, but Arrivals just a month in is already at 40, and we still have 2/3 of the season to go. So it's like there could be more cool stuff to come, or there could just be recency bias because a bunch of cool stuff happened this week. So take that how you will.
We've had 2 exotics, right? Wither Horde came from the season pass. You kind of got it very early on. And then you were able to sort of work on the catalyst. So most of us have probably completed that if you're a tryhard like I am. And now we have Ruinous Effigy this week. So that was about a month later we got our next exotic, right? And I'm guessing Traveler's Chosen is the final one, correct?
That should come from the Solstice of Heroes, I believe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
apparently that will come from Solstice of Heroes, according to Brian, who never reads Reddit/r/raid secrets.
Wait, Solstice? I think it's for the evacuation quests. I think it's time gated based.
Oh, you're right. You're right because we have the other one. You're right.
Brian, you're batting 1,000 this episode. But anyway, Traveler's Chosen is on the way, and I think that does a lot to give you something to look forward to continually. I think there's, in addition, the weekly story quest. I've been on this crazy grind to get all of the all my characters to 1060 base so that I can be prepared for the fall season. That's been sort of like an interesting thing to work on that's keeping me invested in the game. And at the very least, I sign on every week to do that story mission. In addition, I have just been absolutely buried in loot. This season just gives you everything for free, basically. I have 3 postmasters full of Umbral or Pinnacle engrams, and everything's
it's
just
that
like
damn
a mess
recaster,
right
man.
now. Yeah, and it's good, and it also sort of helps you slot level in a quick way, so that like if you're behind just a little bit, you can kind of give yourself a boost and get to that power cap in a faster fashion. I'm really liking the cadence of content right now. Now, to your guys' point, it could slow down, but right now I am liking Arrivals a lot. Now, do I like it more than
is this your favorite
Opulence?
season? Yeah.
No.
No.
Opulence was very, very strong. I think we got a new raid during Opulence, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got
the raid.
the Menagerie. We got story content, sort of. There was some lore stuff, but not really.
Not like missions per se, but
Yeah. But if we look at the things that sort of intersect with those 2 seasons, I think people like Opulence because of the prevalence of rewards, and I think they like Arrivals because there's plenty to do and there's lots of rewards. So the game's kind of gone to showering us with loot. Brian, how do you feel about all this? How do you feel about Arrivals, first of all, and then what's your favorite season and why?
Arrivals so far is great. I mean, especially after what we got this Tuesday, we got a whole bunch of content. And like we were just talking about, all the loot, the recaster is awesome for targeting loot and such like that. But my favorite has to be Opulence, right? Like we had a new raid, we got Menagerie. If we're talking about showering with loot, maybe the Menagerie had an unintentional showering of loot in the start there. But Bungie kind of looked at that before the nerf and just, made sure that they gave us more ways to get loot during the Menagerie. But yeah, like when we're talking about targeted loot, Menagerie had like the actual targeting loot, right? You could slot for very specific items, not just for very specific of maybe one of 2 items, but the Menagerie let you slot for exactly a specific piece of loot. And I think that is like kind of like peak loot chasing, something that Bungie hasn't done since I think now with Season of Rivals, with that recaster. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't remember a system that allowed
Sundial,
you
you could kind of
Sundial.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
Yeah, you could pick it there, but not to the extent of like the recaster or the Menagerie. But I think the system with the recaster is more geared towards the Menagerie, which is great, and I hope that Bungie continues something like that in the future, especially in Beyond Light.
Travis, how about you? What do you like or dislike about Season of Arrivals, and what's your favorite season to date?
Yeah, I would say my favorite season, probably Opulence. Although Dawn is Dawn is pretty close to me because it had a really awesome story. It introduced a new character back into lore and kind of set up the Season of the Worthy and the Return of Trials, which was super exciting in that season, in Season of Dawn, and then kind of disappointing when it actually came. But I think I have to agree Opulence is the best one, just because it had so much. It had a raid. It's one of my less favorite raids, but still a raid. It had a new event, and I really think I'm liking Arrivals, but I think the thing it's missing is it doesn't really have any new activity. It doesn't, Menagerie was a tremendous activity with a bunch of different, activities within it, and then also bosses that you could fight each week, which I think was cool. And Arrivals just has, this public event that feels like, a mix between Gambit and every other public event in the game. And you just are expected to kind of do that over and over again, and then you do one quest that so far seemed kind of samey. It's basically you're going through the motions just to get the weekly done. And yeah, I think that's the thing that the season's really missing, is some unique activity, whether it be a raid or a new strike, which we haven't had one of those in forever, or a new activity that we just don't have now. So
Well, don't worry, we'll have fewer strikes soon enough.
Right. Yeah, just what we need.
We're losing. How many are we actually losing?
I don't want to think about
I'm gonna make a
Oh,
list
man.
at some point. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
It is a lot.
I'd say close
Hopefully-
to 10. I think it's like 8 or 9.
yeah. Hopefully they.
We're losing
bring
a
in
lot of
a
content.
decent amount would be on light. Like,
And-
man, that's a lot
and
of strikes. to
That
lose.
said, I have run them so many times. I'm not like super broken up about
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
inverted spire. or
But
whatever it
don't
is.
It's just
worry,
doing
when the game
strikes.
when,
They
go
when
to
the
the
game
Destiny
makes you
content
do
hall.
strikes, you're going to be in so much more pain though, because the game drives you to strikes a lot. And if they don't replace 8 to 9 strikes, and you're just doing, the
They're definitely not gonna replace 8 to 9
the
strikes.
arms dealer, yeah, the
Still have
arms
arms-
dealer.
no,
You're
wait,
just going
no.
to do that,
No, is that-
50 times.
Oh yeah, that's EDC.
No, it's on Earth. It's on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, it is easy.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry. It
Okay.
goes into the Destiny content vault. It'll come back at some point. But I'm seeing PvP players also like, oh no, Javelin's going away, and things like that. So,
Do we know that for sure?
well,
I don't
they
think we
haven't
know
been
that.
we don't know that, but they haven't been clear about what is happening with the PvP space. Is that going to be included with the stuff going into the vault? Because there's a lot of very, very good maps on some of those locations that are going bye-bye.
That makes
I don't
lore
think
sense, but it
maps-
doesn't make game sense. Like they're these
Yeah.
tiny individual areas. Like they're not part of a patrol zone. So
Like
I don't
with
think it makes
Gambit,
sense
too.
to remove them.
And
So,
they
like-
don't fragment the group or give them
Yeah,
more to
like Gambit
maintain.
already has
Like,
so
that's the
few
whole
maps.
reason.
Like
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
but lore-wise, if Titan gets blown to hell, by the time we
That's
hit
not
okay, but
beyond
if
that-
we're talking lore wise, like why am I still killing Zol the Worm God? 2 years later, like you can't.
Right. Yeah.
because you're
Why are we-
meditating, you're meditating.
Meditating.
Maybe I can meditate about Javelin 4 and my great Crucible match I had at Javelin 4 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we still have to.
You can explain away anything if you want to.
Yeah. Paul, what do you like or dislike about season Arrivals, and what is your favorite season to date?
All right, I'm going to be controversial, and I will say that Arrivals might be my favorite season. I know it's early. I know that technically Opulence had more stuff. It did have a raid, which is hard to top. It's probably like the 4th or 5th best like full raid though, so I don't know how much credit it gets for that. It did for sure have the best seasonal activity in the Menagerie, and we do the one thing missing about Arrivals is a really substantive core activity. I will say the Contact Public event is a lot better than it could be. It's genuinely fun to play, and like I enjoy doing it. It's not maybe the most useful thing to farm, given how many umbrals you can get from literally anywhere. But for an event centered around essentially, or for a season centered around a public event, they could have done a lot worse with it. And I think it's much, much better than the Seraph Towers were. So that's a low bar. The reason I like Arrivals so much compared to all the other ones is that things are happening. Things are finally happening. Like real, actual story developments in Destiny that are actively changing the world. And like we have borderline never seen that until like not since maybe the Red War. And I knew all the stuff was going in the content vault. I was genuinely amazed that Bungie actually decided to write this into the story and have these pyramids show up at each of these 4 patrol zones that are going to, I don't know, vaporize or whatever's going to happen to them. And now we have this evacuation storyline where we're saying goodbye to the zones. So we're like running activities there, and we might be saying goodbye to some of these characters. Like I don't know if Sloan and Ashamir are going to make it out alive. Like it's very significant like story developments in a way that we have not seen. And I think it has raised very interesting questions about the nature of light and the darkness. And I find the conversations with Eris and the darkness every week in the Cradle mission fascinating. I mean, the loot is great. These are two of the most fun exotics they've introduced in a long time. And Traveler's Chosen is supposed to be kind of crazy too. So we'll see. Menagerie is a great activity. It's the best seasonal activity ever. It is the best targeted farm ever. It's kind of cheating to say Menagerie because it was giving like 8-9 drops every 12 minutes for like 2 months at least. So that's a little
in the exact slot you needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was always sad they didn't do more with Menagerie as time went on and changed the loot and stuff. But for that reason, even though we're just a month of new arrivals, like this is why the season has made such an impression on me, just because they promised like the summer of like you'd never expect in Destiny, or like no other time in Destiny, and they actually so far delivered that, which I am genuinely surprised about. Oh, and we got a dungeon too, so that's like a quasi raid in terms of actual content. So we have not seen that in a season itself before either. So
that's true.
Cool.
And honestly, you echo a lot of the sentiments I've had in the past on the show. It feels like we're doing things that are having an impact on the world. I realize that the lore mission has been largely repetitive. That has been a criticism of the community. But still, it's developing that story further every week. It gives you a reason to sign on, do a thing, like interact with the environment a little bit, and then get your reward, which is this story quest. And that is cool. And I don't know why I like the planetary gambit mode more than I liked the other one. Maybe it's because you only really need to successfully do it twice or fail at it 5 times in order to advance. It's not like...
It's very hard to fail, too.
Yeah,
really
like,
hard
because
to fail.
Everyone's stupid overpowered
Compared to
right
Seraph
now.
Towers.
Yeah, Seraph Towers, like, you're constantly having issues with
Seraph Towers is like you miss one guy in a plate and the whole thing is bust. It's
just
crazy.
one Invis Vandal just like darts towards the thing and it just ruins the entire run.
Yeah. So all that combined is just it feels like there's constantly interesting things to do, and we all know that this is building towards whatever's coming in the fall, so it's a little bit extra exciting. One thing I will say, there have been narrative hints about what's coming for like the last year and a half, and sort of realizing all the things that we've been experiencing have been building towards this moment are really neat. I think it goes all the way back to Season of the Drifter when we got the cutscenes with the Drifter. That story beat, those story beats, which again we've talked about before, but those story beats are going to have a payoff now. And I don't know, it's just a really good mix right now of everything going on, and it's cool to hear you talk about sort of the same things that I'm experiencing and enjoying also. The next topic is a little less positive. We're going to talk about Trials of Osiris for a little bit. We're going to have Aztecross on next week with his friend. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they know PvP better than I do, so I'm going to let them sort of speak to the strengths. Kujay and Aztecross apparently hang out a lot. They talk about PvP. They're going to be joining us on the show next week to talk about it more. But this week, I kind of wanted to talk about Trials, where it's at. I just released an article on IGN2 sort of talking about how I think the matchmaking structure needs a rework. Just across the board in Destiny. And it's not skill-based matchmaking versus connection-based matchmaking. It needs more nuance than that. And that's the TLDR version of the whole article. I'll throw it to our guest first. Paul, you and I have played Trials together. It didn't go great, especially on PC. What are your thoughts about Trials? You constantly talk about your struggles with it. You don't claim to be a god at PvP or anything, but you want to play Trials. What's your take on the Trials situation?
Yeah, I'm the type of player where, like, in a normal PvP match, I might be on the top of my team or even leading my team, but then you put me in an actual competitive mode like Trials, and it's just a disaster. So I've mostly given up on Trials this season, like after kind of what happened last season. I played it for the first time last weekend just to see how the new bounty function, where you can essentially fail your way to the 3-win engram. It felt about the same, like getting matched the same kind of teams. It doesn't really seem to matter where you are on your card, how many losses you have. And the bounty is pretty generous in terms of like, you could get 0-5 like every game, and after 10 games you would still get the engram. That's not what happened to me. I actually did win 3 games legitimately, randomly. But it's I don't know, it's maybe like 4 or 5 games to get the engram. The problem is that in attempting to solve token farming, they have taken away getting tokens on losses, and I think they reduced tokens for wins. So now they're only at those metrics. So by the time the 3, 5, and 7. So by the time I hit 3 wins, I had just squeezed enough bounty tokens and win tokens to get 1 extra drop, when previously in all my failures with other trials, like I may have had, by the end of that weekend, I may have had, 60, 80 tokens, depending on how many games I played. But now, after hitting that mark and knowing I'm probably not going to make it to 5 wins, what am I even doing? And so I know this was an attempt to solve token farming, and yet matchmaking feels exactly the same. I still feel like I'm getting farmed by high skill players no matter what I'm ranked. And then I'm also getting way less tokens than I did. So like, I guess it's nice for the free one or 2 pieces of loot every week, but like, why am I going to waste my time on this at this point? I just don't see a reason to, and there's so many other things in the game to do that this I can safely say this is probably never going to appeal to me without some very major changes.
Do you have any suggestions of things that would make it more inviting to a player like yourself?
Everyone hates when I say this. Matchmaking. I know that matchmaking can cause problems with cheaters online, but like I matchmaking, the solo queue of whatever they call competitive now, that ladder.
Freelance.
Yeah, freelance. Yeah, and that totally changed how I played that mode. And like I got way higher than I ever would have before with that. And I think a similar system would create more teams of random scrubs, and then I would be much more likely to match against those teams of random scrubs, and at least have a chance to go higher in the card than I am now. And the good people would still be very good. They would still get flawless and stop all the other teams, but there would be a lot more players in the pool if there was matchmaking. And like I know there are hacking concerns with matchmaking and stuff, but as I play mostly on console, I don't care so much about that, so I'm being selfish. But I truly believe that like a solo queue matchmaking playlist for trials would go a long way to increasing the population and bringing in more skill diversity. So at least sometimes you could randomly get lucky and like get a team that goes further than you might have imagined. But right now, just doing LFG or like just playing with the same group of friends that aren't very good, no offense, friends, is too rough. And
he's right.
Just that one time. But I think that's a core part of the problem. And like I get a lot of pushback every time I say that, but I genuinely think that is a big issue.
Well, my question for you about your suggestion of the freelance option in trials would be like, are you thinking that if you're going to go solo queue and you get matched with a group of other 2 people, would you want to continue your trials run with those random people, or are you talking about each game giving you a different set of people that you're teaming up with?
I think it would start like, I haven't thought this all the way through, but I think it should probably start you at a blank card, and then you're kind of locked into that team until like either like you vote and decide to disband if a run's going just so terribly, or you just keep going until you lose your streak. I think that would probably make matchmaking a little more complex, but I think if it's reset every time and you have to like try and find people with somewhat similar cards, and like that might overcomplicate it. So maybe at the very start when you're queuing, you get the one team you're going to stick with for that card at least, and
sure,
after that you do a new team.
Yeah, trials does bring up an interesting problem where are you locked in for those 7 or more games to get to the lighthouse, or is it every round? I think doing either where you match after every game or you're locked into the team for 7 games would be an improvement over the current system. Because currently what happens is you get your team of 3, you go in and you hit account recovs where people are definitely playing way above their level, or 10-20s that are hitting every sniper headshot and one-shotting you. There's a myriad of issues going on right now, and especially on PC where you have the added addition of players who are using very clever hacks and sometimes using them in a very clever fashion where, you know, you go to 4 and then all of a sudden there's this massive comeback and they become gods in the PvP space. It's got to be hard to detect, and I hope Bungie is definitely working on that anti-cheat. Now, Brian, somebody like you actually aren't a big PvP person. Would there ever be anything that would entice you to play trials? Like, what would have to change to get you invested in that mode, or is it just never going to happen because you're such a PvE focused player?
Mostly that, honestly. It's a lot of the reasons I don't play PvP is not because of like cheaters. Well, I mean, for trials it is, right? Like, it's like I do like actually playing trials with my friends. It's just very daunting and very when you're doing so well in a run and then you come across a cheaters and like you lose because it's out of your control, right? It's like it's not about skill at that point. It's about just somebody on the other end who downloaded a hack that allows them to track you through walls and get a headshot as soon as you come around the corner. But yeah, I don't. If they solve the cheating problem in trials, and solve the lack of players, and then I would probably play a lot more often because, I've been pretty open with it in the past. You know, like I don't think I'm like super terrible at PvP, but I am not a fan of going in by myself. I don't have a good time when I'm not playing with players that I can, synergize with or communicate properly with. So personally, something like a freelance playlist isn't something that's going to draw me in there because I wouldn't want to do that without people that I know and that I know that I can work well with in trials.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I can kind of understand where you're coming from. There's no like one thing though that you can think of. You're like, I'm in, like the playlist.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's because it's an inherent problem that is me, right? I'm not huge in PvP, so there's not. I don't think there's anything Bungie can do to get me to like play trials. Like every.
Do you play Iron Banner?
Not well. I do. I do.
Banner?
Like.
No.
I do. I mean, like, I say that I'm not a big PvP player, but like on Wednesday last week when Iron Banner came out, we had a group of 6 people that went in and we played for probably 6 hours because we were immersing every match because of connection, because they're really good players, right? They know what they're doing. So every match we mercied them. So it's like, why would I stop playing? And I can get all these rewards because these guys are just pub stomping everybody we play again. So it's reasons like that why I'll play PvP. But I don't think it's anything personally that Bungie would do to get me to play PvP more often by myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just looking at warmind.io/activity, you can actually see that Crucible is played by about 12% of the population, and then Trials is an additional 5%. So, I mean, that brings the grand total to 17%. And then when Iron Banner was on, you had 15% of people in Crucible, and then an additional large percentage of people in Iron Banner. So a lot of people play this game for PvP. It's a sizable portion of the community.
This was a good Iron Banner. Like, I missed that week. You were talking about that maybe, but that was a really, like, Iron Banner the way it is now, like outside of a couple issues, is what I think more a pinnacle PvP activity should be. Like, it's power enabled. Like, it'll be with sunsetting, but like anyone, if you grind it, can get loot. Better players will get more loot faster, but there's matchmaking. Like, it's more forgiving. It's less frustrating. There's no card system. You play, and like it's harder than regular Crucible, but you feel rewarded. Like, you feel like you got something out of it, and that's not something I've ever felt from Trials.
Yeah. And Travis, I'll get to you in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, let's just go to Travis first, but I do want to talk about Iron Banner a little bit more. So, Travis, what's your take on the trial situation?
So, I'm probably going to be like, I guess the person who's like gatekeeping a little here, and it's not because I want less people to play trials. It's just that I think it's okay if people don't play trials. My opinion is that, trials is kind of like raids. Like, I don't think matchmaking would work with it, and I don't think that that they should have matchmaking. I think that the whole point of trials is you find a group that you jive well with, and you get better and you practice and kind of beat your head against the wall until eventually you get good enough to compete. I think there are tons of problems with trials, but I'm not really sure that the format and the level of play is really one of them. You know, there's the cheating thing. There's the fact that I think the biggest problem with trials is that you just don't have a reason to do it, right? I'm a guy who loves PvP, loves playing trials, and most weekends I don't play because there's no adept weapon, you know, like there was in Destiny 1, where there was a real reason to play, or incredibly rolled armor and stuff like that. And I think that's the thing that's really holding that mode back. But in terms of the actual mode and the difficulty to get there and kind of climbing the mountaintop, I think that there should be a pinnacle activity for, you know, those people who really, really want to compete. And I think that should be trials. And I think Iron Banner can serve as a middle ground, right? It can be an end game pinnacle activity that has good rewards for people that want to play a more competitive Crucible mode, but without doing something as completely sweaty as trials.
Well, the final topic of the show is talking about why Travis was wrong. No, I'm just kidding. No.
See, I told you I get pushback about matchmaking. From two out of four people on the show.
I like matchmaking. I think the Glory solo playlist was one of the best things they ever added to the game. It made me really, really get into PvP for probably the first time in Destiny 2 history. I absolutely loved it. I hope they get trials to a better place, in all seriousness, where you're not running into account recovs. I don't know how you adjust for that one, but at least you're not running into wall hacks and automatic sniper headshots. I think if you fix the hacker issue, especially on PC, and some of the nuanced matchmaking stuff that has been suggested by Reddit sounds really, really good, like hand-based matchmaking. My trials team, who's struggling to get to their third win, should not face a team who is on their third flawless card on their third win. I think the player pool just needs to be looked at a little bit more in a nuanced fashion, and matchmaking teams at appropriate skill levels with other teams. I don't mind if I go 4-4 and lose. It's when I go 5-0 and I've lost to a team that's cheating or using a service. Right. That's the frustration for me in trials.
Yeah,
now,
I'm okay with all of that, and I'm also okay with the freelance mode for comp. It's just I think that there should be a place like trials that's a little bit more like pure and a little bit more aspirational, and like raids. You know, like nobody really likes matchmaking for raids, and I think that's the right call. So. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
That's a whole different topic, and I've talked about it a lot on the show. I am all for matchmaking in raids, and I'm all for matchmaking in comp. The idea that we can't have matchmaking and then they add Nightfall matchmaking and it's totally fine, basically,
without going on a big tangent about it.
Yeah,
instead of
I know what Brian's going to bring up.
No, what, do you know? But instead of raid matchmaking, just build an in-game LFG. That's all they got to do. That's all they have to do.
Yeah,
they tried it and it failed.
What did they do?
No,
Destiny 2
in-game LFG
guided
was
games.
It?
They had
no, that's terrible. That's
games, no.
I'm talking about something that like the Division did, right? You could go somewhere in like their social space and look for people who are looking, who are trying to do this exact same thing. It's something on that line, but we don't have to go.
Brian, the thing I thought you were going to bring up is the 6-player matchmade activities, like in Season of Dawn, where you had the time. Whatever that thing was called, the time machine event, where you see the sundial. That's right. Thank you. Yeah. You see how badly match-made PvE events happen when there are mechanics involved, and so I think that's like the best argument against matchmaking for raids is that we've seen it try to happen, and it's
not even horrible. That too. It's like Contact when you're down on when you're down on Io or Titan, and you see somebody who's just wildly swinging their sword at an immune guy away from the other guy, and you're like, what are you doing? Like he needs to be over there.
I think all right. I think raids and trials are separate because I think it's more debatable with raids and the mechanics, but trials is fundamentally PvP, and I know that you're at a better disadvantage if you can make callouts and all that stuff. But like people know how to play, like shoot other people on the screen. Like it's not a mechanical issue.
That's true.
And my issue is that if people are using LFP anyway, it's like it's just matchmaking just with a third party service and randoms. Like it's not much different
I see
than
that argument. but when you click on freelance comp, it doesn't put you in a party with those people so that you can compete and do call outs at that level. And LFG essentially forces you into a party, right? It's like a service that there's kind of a vetting process, right? There's no vetting in a match made playlist. And that, I think that's the issue, because if you could make a match made program that stuck you in with 2 people, made you stay there for the entire ticket, and made you enable some sort of chat or communication, I would be for it. But that's not how it is. It's just unvetted randoms who maybe aren't paying attention, maybe don't actually care, maybe they clicked on it by accident. LFG has a barrier of entry, right? It has
I would argue that a lot of the vetting annoys people, though, and they don't like must have X flawless tickets, like blah blah blah. Like, and furthermore, that can still exist. Like no one is saying that wouldn't exist. And like these badly coordinated teams that like you don't want to be on, you wouldn't have to be. Like you can still LFG, you can still play with your friends. It's just an option for random scrubs to go in there, and so maybe the bottom tier of trials has more of a chance to go further than they would otherwise. I love this head-to-head screen thing you got going, by the way.
Fight. No,
we're going to be on the,
I built that really quick, and I'm like, oh, they're having a great conversation. Let's throw that up. No, but like with raids, I've LFG'd raids for 4 weeks now, and I have had varying levels of skill with the teams. And
you don't have to do that, right? You have people that you can play with.
You guys are always doing some weird shit.
What do you mean?
You're never available.
What? Just ask and we'll do it.
Oh, we're running the 14-year-old raid on PS4 standard only with inverted controls.
14 years.
When do we do that?
It's the reason that I don't play with the people on the panel that often. Well, we have more lately, but it's just a scheduling thing. My schedule's weird. Their schedule's weird. It's hard for us to find a time to play together. That's all it is, plain and simple. And that's why LFG so
and you don't like us.
And I hate Travis. I just can't get over. No, that's not true at all. But yeah, we went way longer than I thought we would this week. I do want to touch on Iron Banner really briefly, because PvP is being played by about 1 million people on any given week. Iron Banner was played by 1.1, and I've been working with the Warmind.io team to get these analytics. So unique players, the week of Iron Banner was about 1.1 million. That was actually, for unique players, it was a 1% decrease, believe it or not, over the previous Iron Banner held in April when matchmaking was different. So the new matchmaking structure doesn't seem to have a impact on the Iron Banner structure. I want to make that clear because I saw one Reddit thread that said it was record breaking, which was not true. And then I saw one Reddit thread that said it was the lowest it's ever been. Neither of those are true. It's just a marginal, it's about the same it always has been. So digging into the analytics there. Now that said, Paul, you wrote an article about Iron Banner and about the new matchmaking structure. And here's what I found playing as a solo player. As a solo player, I was constantly getting mercied and I was constantly being put up against stacks, and that didn't feel good. The reaction that I heard from the community just on my personal Twitter was a lot of people that were playing with others seemed to have a better experience. When I rolled with Clan Concern, that Brian and Travis are on, and those guys, we raffle stomped everybody. We had like 5 mercies.
It was
back
nasty.
to back.
It was bad.
It was brutal, right? So I saw both sides of the spectrum. Now, I don't think that is a good experience for a solo player. Paul, what are your thoughts? You wrote an article about the situation and your experience. What did you have happen during your Iron Banner run?
I don't actually remember what I said in that article, but just remembering playing, it didn't seem that different, honestly. Like, Iron Banner is always kind of a disaster, like both good and bad. There are frequently games where I get mercied a ton, and then sometimes I'll just go on streaks where I, destroy other teams. I would say I had a higher variety of randomly good games. I think I had a 21-0 KD game, which has never happened in Iron Banner in history. So I lucked out with matchmaking that time, I guess. And so I honestly didn't notice enough where I can definitively say like, CVMM made this much better or much worse, because I find 6 stacks and mercies have always been a problem in Iron Banner. And I saw a Reddit thread it was a compilation of other Reddit threads of people complaining about Iron Banner, like every Iron Banner for the last like 6 months or something. And like to a certain degree, this always happens. So like me personally, like it's kind of anecdotal because everyone had a different experience. I'm sure it is much easier to stop teams when you're on a 6 deck. Like at most, I was playing with 2 other people, and we were doing fine. But it didn't seem that much different to me. And I personally think the interest was not. Maybe it was some like higher tier players like showing up to do CBMM and saying it feels better for them now. I just think it was the loot. Honestly, I think there were 2 new guns to chase with new perks that make them very interesting. And they're both really good guns. And once people figured out that they were really good guns, everyone's like, yeah, I got to get some of those. And unfortunately, Iron Banner farming, the quest was nothing, and you could get 1 copy of each unless you did like a glitch. But the farming kind of sucks because there's no way to target farm in Iron Banner at all. And once you're done with the first bounties, like it's like 5 tokens a win. So like that's maybe 1 drop an hour if you win all your games. Like that's crazy. Yeah. So I think there's stuff to work on there, but.
Digging into rewards, Paul, you're absolutely right. You had 6 pinnacle drops in the form of weapons, because if you did the quest and you had picked it up on all 3 characters, you got 6 basically free weapons. You had to kill people with ARs and kill people with sidearms, and it doesn't take that long to do that. Yeah. So that's like 6 drops right there. Plus you have 4 pinnacle drops, the highest tier in the game, on each character for a total of 12. I'm very bad at math. 4, 8, 12. Yeah. For 12 total pinnacle drops. And in addition, you're getting umbrals, you're getting the drops from the matches. I think there's a lot we could dig into with Iron Banner. The fact that the loot pool is like 12 items and I had to turn in 1,000 tokens to get a chest plate on my Warlock, 1,200 tokens to get a chest plate on my Warlock. It's a little
I'm missing
insane.
1 piece on all 3 classes, and I'm so mad. Like I'm missing 1 individual piece of the armor set.
Yeah. And that armor set with the sun setting is going to last until I believe season 14. I would have to look on Dim really quick, but yeah, I believe it is going to last a substantial period of time. So even
though it's ugly, you can put the good Iron Banner ornaments on it.
Yeah, Iron Fellowship Cloak 1368 as a season 14 max. So those drops are definitely a reason why you would want to go for them. Travis, Brian, do you have any thoughts on Iron Banner? Brian, what do you got?
Seems good.
I turned in 2,000 tokens and didn't get a single forward path.
Not one.
The only one I got. Not one. The only one I got was from completing the quest, and that pissed me off.
I was like, I hope you did the quest first, because it wouldn't have been cool.
Yeah, no. The only one I got was I didn't obviously because I didn't like roll that you get from the quest, and I just did. I turned in 2,000, didn't get a single one. I got a new Storm of the Raven that I didn't want.
Yeah.
Get 30 Cremil daggers. That's what I got.
Oh yeah, plenty of those. Yeah,
I guess my thoughts are. I actually.
That's all we have time for. No, I'm just kidding. No, go ahead.
I agree with Paul on this one. I didn't really notice any difference with the matchmaking, and also for me, Iron Banner has always been like a total crapshoot. Like some matches I just dominate, and other ones I just run up against a team that doesn't, my team doesn't know what they're doing. And guys, I do a lot of solo queuing on console, and it was very much like that this time. It was like some matches I got crushed, and other matches I dominated, and you just try to be on the top of your leaderboard at least, and every once in a while you end up with a team that doesn't know that you're playing control, and that's a ton of fun. So yeah, I think it's always crazy.
Real quick, here's a look at the drops that I got. So this is obviously me filling up my postmaster, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 Swarm of the Wavens, 2 Criminal Daggers in there, 2 of the Talons, 2, 3, 4, 5 boots. Come on with these drops.
Look how many auto rifles you had there. Very relevant. You only had 1 forward path.
Yeah.
They need more end of match drops. I think that's the answer. They need end of match drops, and they need daily bounties for tokens.
Well, take out the other. If they took out the other loot pool of Crucible, it'd just make it Iron Banner loot. Because you get all these other bullcrap that you don't want. You're like, I'm playing Iron Banner to get Iron Banner gear. Take out all the other Crucible loot.
Or how about this? Why don't they just do what they've done with every other mode and allow you to kind of select your loot like they did with the Recaster and Menagerie?
Yeah, I've heard of a focused Iron Banner engram or something. Yeah, that's a good idea too.
And to that point, Travis, like I just think that PvP needs a little bit more look at the nuance and how they handle a lot of the systems. The drops are a little weird. They have some stuff that's working. And yeah, my feedback across the board is like matchmaking needs more nuance. The drops need more nuance and care and how they've structured it. And I think it's time to really, really look at the minutia of it, because you have great modes. Yeah. Trials is great when it's working right. Iron Banner is great when it's working right. The drops are coveted and people want the drops. So there's a lot of good there. Now it's just about fixing the smaller little things to make that experience better for the player in the end. That's my 2 cents.
My review of all of Crucible is that it's the most fun, most unrewarding modes in Destiny. I mean, it's just like, for sure, there's really no reason to play pretty much any of the PvP modes.
Well, guys, we've actually reached the end of the episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul. Paul Tassi, yes. Where can people find your stuff? Forbes, right? And YouTube.
At Paul Tassi on Twitter. Google me for my Forbes stuff. And now, I guess, look me up on YouTube with my name. I got to get a custom URL because I'm trying to do weekly videos now. So lots of places.
For sure. And Brian and Travis, thank you as always. For the outro, I'm going to start saying the outro. You guys say Guardians out, and I will try and time it with you because that has worked pretty well in the last few episodes. So until next time, everybody, Guardians out. Nailed it.
Did that actually work?